Okay. This is 10.2. It's going to have a CMHW, but there's a lot of things in it. So, just in case this is really choppy teaching, it's probably because it's really choppy teaching. I have just spent the last week plus really working on 10.3. So yesterday I went and did the 10.2 homework here just to refresh my memory. So anyway, but you are my guinea pigs, right?
Yep.
And you love that and I love you for it, right? All right, so we'll start in on these 10.2. Title of this is What's Fair? So what were we learning about in 10.1? That was just different voting methods, right? Okay, how to determine a winner, voting methods. Now we got to figure out, well, what's fair? So, your opinion, which of the 5 voting methods or 5 counting methods from 10.1 do you think is most fair? And if you're not remembering what those methods are, flip back to the other side of the page right in front of you to refresh your memory, because these vote counting methods, hang on. All right, so y'all please remind me to stop the video. I think I recorded my whole class yesterday on the trig video, 2nd period and 3rd period. Anyway, so anyway, looking at these methods, what do you think is the most fair?
Pairwise. Pairwise?
Pairwise?
I think word count.
Board account. Okay, so you've gotten a chance probably within the last 24 hours to play with these, because that's probably when you were scrambling to finish up your 10.1 assignment. Okay, majority rule.
Majority rule.
That's kind of what you're used to, right? And so you're at least saying it's got to be over half, not just the most votes, but you got to have majority.
For at least I think it's majority rules, because like.
I think because like if you're not like the popular vote, like you don't want to be, like people don't want you there, then I don't think you should be allowed to be there.
So plurality is just most votes win.
Well,
But you like majority better than plurality?
Because some people like not even with like presidents, they might have good qualities, but get less votes because of the plurality.
Okay.
And then the person with like not as good qualities.
Yeah, like if you have 3 candidates, you could potentially have 33%, 33%, and 34%, you know? And so that person who wins has about 1/3 of the vote, but 2/3 of people aren't even supporting them.
Yeah.
So with majority, at least over half of the constituents, have you heard that term used before?
Yes, we use it in
Okay.
government.
Over half the constituents were supporting them. So anyway, just kind of a little discussion there, okay? So, so what do you think is least fair then?
Majority of whatever.
Plurality?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Majority, wait, just flat out majority is just not real fair, right?
No.
Yeah.
Wait, y'all were kind of saying y'all thought majority
Yeah, I
was.
thought majority was fair.
So just plain plurality, which is, plurality is just most votes wins.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair.
Okay, not necessarily. Okay, some of them involve a whole lot of comparisons. You know, pairwise kind of does that head-to-head thing. All right, so anyway, let's try out some words. See if you can figure out some of these. Some of these words you'll figure out. Some of them you're never going to figure them out, but whatever. Okay. Historically, scholars have proposed a variety of standards or blank for measures of fairness. Any other rules? No, it's not too bad. I don't think, Formulas? All of those kind of fit, okay? The word they're using are benchmarks. Now, where have you heard that word? Okay, so what is a benchmark? Okay, it's kind of like a standard. This is the benchmark. I need to see where you are, okay? So a benchmark is just kind of another word for standard. You've got to meet this standard or it's not okay. That's kind of what they're saying when they give the benchmarks at the 6 weeks. They're hoping that you've met this certain standard or something's not okay. All right? So they have these benchmarks for measures of fairness to help ensure electoral fairness, except they just used fairness, so you wouldn't want to use fairness again, right? So this is the word they've used. Integrity. Okay? Which is kind of another word for fairness in this context, but it's integrity makes sure you are meeting certain standards. Okay? 5 of the most natural conditions have become widely accepted as blank of fairness. Okay? So,
I don't think it means.
you're not going to guess this one, okay? It pretty much means standards of fairness or benchmarks of fairness, but this time, this is just out of the book. You know, they're trying to get a little bit of, they're probably pulling out the thesaurus and stuff, but they're going to be yardsticks. So what do you think that means? Yardsticks of fairness.
Like a wide range.
What do you do with a yardstick?
Measure people with
They're measures of fairness. So they have come up with mathematical methods to double check the fairness of something. And that's what this section's about. How to determine what's fair and what's not fair. Okay? So we will consider each of these 5 criteria in this section. Of course, they all get their name. So we have 5 voting methods now, and now we have 5 methods of deciding if the voting was fair in a particular situation. Okay? So there is blank, there is no single voting system that captures
every
Ah,
complete.
perfect. Yeah, so y'all are all in the ballpark, aren't you? There's nothing that captures perfect fairness as defined by the 5 criteria. So we're going into the section knowing there is no perfect voting system. If there were a perfect voting system, then we probably wouldn't have needed to examine 5 methods. All right? Somebody would have come up with the perfect system that works all the time, but there is no perfect system. So in different situations, they just have to kind of figure out stuff. So the first method, and you will see questions saying, does this meet this criterion? So this is a criterion, is a standard again, okay? So this is, how do you think you say that?
Condorcet?
Condorcet. It is French. Have you heard that before? No, Condorcet. So I was thinking, you know, think about Chevrolet, things that end in a T often make a sound. All right? So you do not need to write all this down, but this method is named for a French mathematician, Nicolas de Condorcet. Now, that's not really his whole name. He was actually Marie-Jean Antoine Nicolas Caratal Marquis de Condorcet. Look,
You just know that off the top
We're
of your
just-
head?
I have it written down right here. Okay? So, he was an 18th century, I don't even know what. He just lived in the 18th century. He died mysteriously in a Paris prison during the French Revolution. I think a lot of people died mysteriously in Paris prisons during the French Revolution. He had been a noble, you know, a French noble, and, you know, the revolution was not very kind to them. All right? So, okay. Here is Condorcet's criterion, and you might want to highlight a couple of things because it's really important. It says, if a candidate wins the head-to-head comparison, okay? So if a candidate wins a head-to-head comparison against every other candidate, candidate. So do we have a method that would check head to head? Pairwise, okay? So you could check pairwise, and we know how to do that. And you got a little bit of practice with that on the homework, right? If they win head to head against all the other candidates in a pairwise, then that candidate should also win the whole, hey, this word is very close to that, overall election.
and a fair voting.
Yes! Y'all are, oh, I love y'all. In a fair voting system, they ought to win the overall election. But then the question is, how do they find the overall winner? Okay? By design, which methods adhere to this criterion?
Pairwise.
Okay? Pairwise, right? All right. So, however, the blank method, the blank blank method, and the blank with blank method
The pairwise method,
all have a possibility of violating it.
majority rules.
That's not on there. That's the one we don't have.
Board count.
The Borda count. And I have yet to do any research into where it gets its name Borda, but Borda is always capitalized in Borda count. So I don't know if it's a name of a person, a place. Okay. Okay. The plurality, the Borda count, and the blank with blank.
Plurality with
The plurality, which is a little more fair, I think, than this plurality. Plurality with elimination all have the possibility of violating this criterion. Okay? So, let's play with Condorcet. All right? So, example 1. So, our examples here are going to have us use two methods. And if we are having the same winner with both methods, we didn't violate that criterion. But if we get two different winners with the comparison we're making, then we're going to go, oh, maybe our voting isn't fair. Okay? So, ready? Example 1. Condorcet criterion and the plurality method. 3 students are in an election for the president of the National Society of Collegiate Scholars on campus. Members were asked to rank the 3 candidates, and they give us a lot of these ranking tables because when you have a ranking table, it helps you do several of our methods, correct? All right. The results are shown in the following preference table. All right? So, first of all, tell me what you know about the plurality method, which is one of the methods we're going to look at.
Whoever has the most votes wins.
Okay? So, most votes win. And what did you say about majority?
It doesn't matter if it's majority or not.
Okay. No majority required. Okay? So, using the plurality method, might even want to highlight the plurality right there. Who would be our winner? Okay, who?
Andrew.
Oh, okay, because how do you know?
Because Charles is out of that 61.
Oh, so Charles has 30 plus 31. He only adds up to 61. He's not it. Who else we got? Andrew.
65. Bethany, 21.
Bethany. Okay, so keep in mind with plurality, when it says most votes, we're talking about first place votes if they happen to give you a ranking table or a preference table. So for plurality, we are just looking at the first place votes. So Charles got 61, Andrew got 65. How about Bethany? How many first place votes did she get?
21.
Just the 21. So Andrew wins using plurality, correct? So plurality is one of your easiest ones to answer, isn't it? Okay. But then it's going to compare the Condorcet criterion, which has to make you use a pairwise comparison, doesn't it? So, last week when I gave you notes on pairwise, they did a little, they had a funky grid that we didn't really like. And I just liked, did y'all prefer these, just put them on lines to do pairwise? Okay, so this is where we have a formula. We have how many candidates in this particular election?
4.
Did we have 4?
3.
Okay, so what brought you to say 4?
Because there's 4 sections.
They gave 4 different possible rankings there, didn't they? Okay, but with 3 candidates, and we're pairing them off, each of the 3 candidates is going to go head to head with the other 2 candidates, but what else do we do with it?
We divide by 2.
We divide it by 2. Okay, so hang on. That's not what I want to be writing. I'm not writing in the place I want to write. Right there I wrote n equals, so what should my n equal? 3. And then right here I'm going to say 3 times 2.
Over 2.
Why am I dividing it by 2?
Because you can't do this, because if you do the
Oh,
same
yeah, you
method.
can't.
Yeah, so if I compare Jacob versus Addie, and then later I compare Addie versus Jacob, is that a whole new comparison? No. Why do it twice, right? You okay? You make it, or you want to go to nurse? Okay, you look like you're going downhill fast, buddy. Pack up your stuff.
Are you on a fever, Jacob?
All right. I hope that you feel better.
Go to the office first because she's not in her thing right now.
All right. And when you are feeling better, the video will be uploaded at some point. Okay, so what do we end up with? How many comparisons do we actually do?
3.
Okay, 3 comparisons. So we've seen this table, but I'm to the point where I don't necessarily need the table. If I came up here, I would say, oh, let me do Charles versus Anthony and Charles versus Andrew. And then once I've used up Charles against everybody, then I take, did I say Anthony?
Yeah.
Huh, doesn't look like Anthony now that I'm looking at things sideways. Charles versus Brittany, Charles versus Andrew. I just combined them.
Still the wrong
What does
name.
it say?
Bethany and Andrew.
Okay, well, if I'm looking at it straight, I can see it. But from this,
Bethany and Andrew into one thing.
Yeah, you
I
said
did
Andrew.
twice. I
You
got
said
even
Brittany.
better.
You said
Okay, well, I'm going to try this again. Charles versus Bethany, Charles versus Andrew, and Charles has versed everybody, right? I don't know if that's proper grammar at all. Pretty sure it's not. Then I go down to Bethany and say, let me see who is below Bethany. Bethany hasn't gone against Andrew. All right? And there's nobody below that. So then I go to Andrew, and there's nobody he hasn't already been paired with. So anyhow, but I do like when I'm doing scratch work on, what's this method called?
Pairwise comparison.
When I'm doing scratch work on pairwise, this works nicely for me. Okay? So I also am totally hunky-dory if you do not spell out whole names and you just use first letters. So far I haven't run across any homework problems where they put the same first letter on more than one thing. That's just a pain there. Okay? So, Andrew versus Bethany. I'm about to change her to Destiny now. Gee, good thing I don't teach reading, huh? Okay, so in each one of these, I'm going to go down the column and see who's on top in that column. Andrew versus Bethany. Who wins these 30 votes?
65 plus 30.
Okay, you're ahead of me. Who wins the 30 votes in the first column?
Charles.
Blah! Look.
Andrew and Bethany. Oh, Bethany.
Yes. So Bethany gets those 30 votes, right? Next column, Andrew versus Bethany. Who gets the 31 votes?
Andrew.
Andrew. Next column, who gets the 65 votes?
Andrew.
Next column, who gets the 21 votes?
Bethany.
Okay. Do you even need to add to declare the winner here?
No.
Okay, so I'm just circling Andrew and putting a 1 by his name. Okay. Sometimes I underline Andrew and circle a 1 by his name. But do you see the 1 point that Andrew has won? Let's move on. Andrew versus Charles. First column, who gets the 30? Second column, who gets the 31? Third column, who gets the 65? Fourth column, who gets the 21? Who wins that one? So he has earned 1 point, correct? Bethany versus Charles. First column. Okay, 30 votes. Second column. 31 votes.
Wait,
Third.
you're putting it on the wrong one. Right?
I am putting it on the wrong one. I am a hot mess today.
What do you call it? Thwart day?
Thwart day. It's not a total thwart day. It's just a more of a spaz day. Thwart day is when like nothing goes right.
I think it's just like the last week before spring break, so you're just like,
Yeah. Now this is the distracted day. In my mind, I've got the fact that I have so many papers over there, and when third period ends and I sit down for my conference period, about 6 hours of time would catch me up. But I don't. I have like 45 minutes of time, and then I'll just be going, I'll spend 5 of it going, what's most important? What should I do first? Y'all get that?
Yeah.
Been there, done that? Okay. So let's go back and give Charles those 30 votes and give Charles those 31 votes. Thank you for saving me from myself. And
Charles also got 60.
and so do I even need to continue?
No.
Okay. If you can tell without writing them down, I don't care. Okay? I'm not checking your numbers here. I just am checking that you made some attempt. So if you don't put stuff on lines because it is blatantly obvious, well, fine. Okay? Have we done all of our 3 comparisons?
Yep.
Total number of points for Andrew.
1.
Total points for Bethany.
0.
I don't think she's winning. Total points for Charles.
2.
Okay. So, Charles
1.
won the pairwise, right?
Yep.
But Andrew
1.
won the plurality. So, does the plurality method adhere to the Condorcet criterion for this election? No. Okay? Why? Because you're going to have a lot of explain your answers. So explain why you're saying no.
Andrew won the plurality method instead of Charles.
Andrew won plurality. And I think we should say, but Charles won what?
Like,
Pairwise.
Pairwise. Now, Condorcet is always going to compare pairwise to something else. Okay? Because pairwise is inherently part of Condorcet's criterion. All right? Moving on. Method 2, the majority criterion. So, let's see if we can figure this guy out. If a candidate receives a majority, I do that a lot. There's not even a G in the word, but by the time I put my A and my J together, there is a G in the word. Of votes in an election, okay? And by the way, it seems like if you win the majority of votes, you ought to win, right? Okay? if they give me one of these preference tables, the majority is only looking at first place votes, remember, okay? So, if the candidate receives the majority of votes in an election, the candidate should win. Seems like a no-brainer, correct? Okay. It's possible when using the blank blank method, the majority criteria is not satisfied.
Majority vote. No.
Pairwise comparison.
Nice try, but no.
Majority rule.
Board account.
I'll-
With the board account, where we start considering the other ranks, sometimes the majority doesn't win. Okay? In which case, we do not meet the majority criterion because we win an election without a majority. You can use what?
Like bargaining
Huh?
like bargaining wrong state, so
Oh, nobody's in home?
yeah.
So you can't like us let you lay down in the microphone? Stay with us and hope to be okay. Sorry. Alright. And they have to have somebody, because you drive, right?
Yeah.
But they have to have somebody approve you're leaving.
Yes, ma'am.
Because your mom's probably in the middle of STAR testing. What grade does she teach?
Fourth, fifth, fourth, and fifth.
There. Yeah, I think my grandson has your mom.
Probably.
My grandson's in 4th grade and he's got a STAR test this morning, so I saw him in the office and he said, STAR test today, I'm going to die. He's probably not going to die, but please do your best. All right, okay, so majority, we're going to compare majority to board account. The majority criterion may not be satisfied sometimes. This method, blank,
Compares.
huh?
Compares.
Ah, okay, let's see.
Select.
Okay. All right. All right, not this method, that method, which is board account. I'm going to leave that for a second. So that method, blank the candidate, huh?
Prefers.
You're almost on it. Favors. That method favors the candidate who is consistently ranked highly by all the voters over a candidate who is simultaneously winning with the majority of voters. It's actually, they are popular with a majority of voters and blank with the rest of the electorate. What's the opposite of popular?
Controversial.
Or actually, I was going to go with unpopular. And it might be, could be because they are controversial, or it could be just because they just don't like them, you know? So, anyway, so the board account takes into consideration everybody's ranks, doesn't it? Okay, it's got a little bit of math involved. Do you see the math in this chapter? Okay, so it's very possible that the majority candidate, seems obvious that you got the most votes, you win, but you may not have a lot of support. So board account, which talks about where everybody got ranked, considers everybody's thoughts on everybody, and may not meet this majority criterion. All right, so let's find out. Example 2, majority criterion and the board account method. So, our situation this time, in an election for chairman of the board of directors for a major company, shareholders were given an opportunity to rank the top 5 nominees. The results are posted in the preference table before. Now, y'all, how many possible ways could these 5 people be ranked? What's the math you do if you're trying to... 5 factorial, which I believe is 120, right? Okay. Thank goodness we did not see 120 different rankings. All right? So, amazingly, only 4 rankings occurred, which would be pert near impossible, but I'm still glad they did it this way. Agree? All right, so A, determine the winner using majority rule. And with majority rule, what do we look at on this table? The total and first place. So, how many first place votes did Bereeds get? 2,300. Oh, that sounds good, right? How about M. Gruber, which I'm assuming means Mr. Gruber?
3,100.
Oh, Bereeds is not going to get the majority, is he? Okay. What about T. Taylor?
0 or
Okay, Jensen got nothing for first place. T. Taylor got
6,200.
6,200, adding those together. What about all right?
none.
Got nothing. Now, we need to be very careful about the majority, and some people have missed problems lately on the majority because they take what? What numbers do I need to get the majority?
Total.
The total. So I see you over there cranking out your calculator. What's your total?
4 plus 62.
8,000.
Did you add up all of these?
54 plus 6.
Oh, I did 400 instead of 4,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So 11,600 divided by 2 is.
5,800.
So, would 5,800 votes be a majority?
Yeah. Or no,
No, 5,800 would be exactly half. So,
40.
so 5,801 would be a majority. So, if it's an even number, you must add 1 to it to say this would be more than 50%. Okay? Now, if it's an odd number, you're always going to end up with a 0.5. So rounding up would be more than the 0.5.
Winner is T. Taylor.
Okay, our winner. Wait, do we have some? Do they have a majority?
Yeah.
Yeah, T. Taylor has a majority. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that because I'm going to need to compare my majority winner with my board account winner. Now, folks, I was crunched for space here, so we're going to determine the board account winner and put that winner on this line after we do all this work below.
Okay.
So do you remember how the board account works? Okay, so my points, first of all, how many places do I have?
4.
No, look down the thing.
A fi-
I've got 5 places, so first place gets 5, then second place gets 4, third place gets 3, 2, and if you're voted last, you still get 1 measly little point, right?
So would it be?
And the columns, okay, so in each column, and I brought my totals down to my other table, so they'll be handy. In each column, first place winner gets 5 points times all 2,300 votes.
5 times 2,800.
Is what?
11,500.
Okay. And then Gruber, where'd Gruber rank in that first column?
Would it be third?
He's third place, which gets 3 points for all 2,300 votes, which is 6,900. Okay? And then let's finish up this first column together. What about Jensen? Where was he ranked?
2,300.
Dead last, so 2,300, 1 point each, that's 2,300. I didn't even use a calculator on that.
Would be 2.
Taylor was fourth, which gets you 2 points for each of the 2,300 votes,
46.
which would be 4,600 points. And Wright, where did Wright rank?
4. Or a second.
Okay, so he gets 4 points each
Yeah.
for all 2,300 votes, which gives Wright how much?
92,000.
How about 9,200?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, now, hold the phone. Let's do the top row. Let's finish up Barrett's, but my brain wants me to call them birdies. Let's finish up birdies for each column. So in the 3100 column, he's in the middle, right? So he gets 3 points for all 3100, which is 9300. But in the 4000 column, what's his? He's second, which makes 4 points for all 4,000, which is 16,000 votes. That's a lot of votes, right? And what about the final column? Where's Birdie's rank? Again, which is worth how many points?
4.
For every vote. So I'm 2,200, which gives them 8,800, right? Now, I will add across each row to get that candidate's total.
3,800 plus.
There's a lot to do in your head.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Then you're getting into 3-digit numbers with zeros on the end.
45,600.
4,500, 600. Okay. All right. Carson, you just answered my question. Are you conscious by looking up? So I'm going to just hush and put the numbers. I'm not going to put all the scratch work, but I'm going to put the numbers for each box. So as you get yours, if your totals in the right column don't add up to my totals, maybe you can back up and find your mistake, okay?
So if they're in first place, they get top.
Yes. Not super complicated, but a little bit tedious, which is potential for mess ups. Just because you're dealing with so stinking many numbers. As you finish, I would just check my total points column on the right. If it matches the one I've got on the board, shouldn't have any mistakes. If it doesn't match, go back through the row and see what may have gone wrong. Can you even see it?
Yeah.
in theory, you could do this without a table. You could just say, let me find all of,
Okay, is
Birdies.
your last one 6,000 or 6?
that's 6600. Because it was 3 times 2200.
I keep on putting 400.
Yeah, you do. And that's what's getting you. All right. Do we have a winner? Who?
Three.
Breeds. I like calling them birdies. Okay, so the winner of the board account is Breeds. Okay, board account winner, Breeds. Now, do you see this stray little letter C right here?
Yep.
I fixed it so when you come back next year, it will be on this line, and this is scooched up a teeny tiny bit so you have a little more room to work. So, does the board account method satisfy the majority criterion for this election?
I think so.
Do we have the same winner both ways?
No.
So then that's a no. So
But
if
I kind of want to bury you, so.
just you're not calling them birdies. No. All right. It doesn't satisfy the majority criterion that says the candidate that has the majority well, okay, it says if a candidate has a majority, that the candidate should win, right? But it's possible that if you use the board account, the candidate that wins on the board account doesn't have the majority, right? So, how are we going to explain this?
Taylor won majority.
Okay, or I might even go that Breeds wins using board account, right? But doesn't have the majority. So this discussion comes up almost every presidential election because they use an electoral college, and there have been times when somebody did not win the majority, but they may have won the electoral college, or so anyway, and they're like, but and people will argue it generally for what they actually wanted to happen. My candidate had the majority, but or whatever. So it gets kind of heated because there are different ways to vote, different things to consider. All right, let's go to, we have gone past time because there's no bells. So we will start here tomorrow. And would you like to take an attempt at saying that one?
Monotonicity?
Have you heard it before?
No, I just.
Monotonicity, you're right. I had to kind of practice that one. I wasn't sure where I wanted to put the emphasis in there. So I looked it up and listened to it a few times, but monotonicity.
Yeah, I just know the roots, and I trust my gut for where to emphasize.
You got a good gut. We trust your gut too. All right. I'm stopping the video.
Yay.
Oh, good idea.
Yes.